Well, it has been a while since I have come across a movie that is so full of heart, one that has so many teachable moments and entertains. And for me, the new film, The Unbreakable Boy, that comes out this weekend in theaters, really hit home for me because, like my guest today, I too have raised a son with autism. So I am pleased to be joined today by the real life Scott LeRette. Scott, welcome to Kingdom Builder TV. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, I asked how you're doing today, but I see the beach in the background, so I'm thinking you're doing pretty good right now.
No, it's about 5 degrees outside and gray, and people are putting down salt. So I don't think it's going to be too many palm trees here where I am in Des Moines. I'm in Des Moines actually today.
Oh, okay. Well, Scott, The Unbreakable Boy comes out in theaters this weekend, and I'm sure that I'm really sure that this movie is going to really connect with a lot of moviegoers. But for those who are not familiar with it yet, take a moment to tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's really it's easy to see that where people initially, especially like with the trailer, think that it's this story about this autistic kid. And in reality, I mean, I wrote this and initially started writing just for my own selfish purposes, for my own self-induced therapy. But so it's my life story. It just so happens that this crazy, kooky, lovable, amazing kid that has autism and osteogenesis imperfecta and heart disease, he happens to be just a huge catalyst in how the whole story unfolds. And I think that for me, writing, I didn't know I was going to write a book. I originally wanted to make a television show, and we're still going to do that. My movie producing partner is Peter Facinelli, and we want television because we just thought this crazy, mixed up, flawed, and broken family would resonate with every other family in America, and television would be great to showcase that. And of course, we obviously ended up with Kingdom Story Company and then Lionsgate, and here we are today. But it's just there's so many elements of it. There's an underlying faith element that's through the entire film, in my book, I hope. And because one thing we didn't want to do was hit everybody over the head with religion. And I think that John Gunn, our writer director, did a remarkable job in that aspect. But I think that when people walk away, my one hope is that they'll be able to take at least some small thing out of our story that connects with them personally, whether it's faith, special needs, addiction, parenting, marriage. And I think that's a big reason why HarperCollins with my book and Kingdom and Lionsgate really, they picked it up quickly. They grabbed it quickly. And I think that was probably the reason, was because of its connection with so many different types of people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really like what Kingdom Story Company's been doing over the years. I've got a chance to talk to Kevin Downs and Andy Irwin many times over the years. And one thing I like about their films is, I'm a Christian, but I know that a lot of people that go to the movies are not. So they don't necessarily like to be bombarded with the faith-based elements. So they kind of have this a way of storytelling with these
Oh,
films, being able to implement all of the elements in there and really connect with an audience as a whole. And watching this film, seeing your life and Austin's story adapted into a film is a rare experience. And you have one of the great actors playing in this movie, Zachary Levi. Of course, he was in another Kingdom Story Company film years ago called American Underdog, which he played Kurt Warner. And what was it like watching Zachary portray you on the screen? And did he really capture your essence of your journey as a father?
well, I like to refer to it as I had Shazam play me, because that's really what. And a lot of folks don't know that he was the voice of Flynn Rider in, I think, Tangled,
Yeah.
which was just a huge cartoon. But Zachary is an amazing guy. He on set, though, he is like, we went on set a few times and had so much fun. But on set, he's one of those actors that is just locked in. I mean, intense. And you take him out of that environment, though, and he's just a sweetheart and the nicest guy in the whole world. But apparently, he was handed the script at Lionsgate when he was in there for some other role or some other project, and he read it and called back the next morning and said, "I'm doing this." And that's how he came to be. And we were, of course, thrilled. And today, now knowing what I know, I couldn't be more happy with the choice of Zach to play me and take part in the film, because he really embraced it. And he's a great guy and a great Christian.
Yeah, and going to the film, with Austin as this one of the central characters of this film. Not only does he have autism and brittle bone disease, but I couldn't help wondering, and just watching this movie unfold, looking at my own struggle over the years, raising a child with autism. And my son Aiden, who's 15 now, he's a bruiser. So with him, if the bone break element of having brittle bone disease was added to my story, I think that bone break count would be in the hundreds by now. I can't even imagine adding that to the element of an already crazy and magical journey that I've been on.
Well, I tell you what, the OI and his heart are really pale in comparison to who Austin is and his autism. But I'd be remiss, though, if I didn't kind of touch on one thing that some in the autism community, I've had some folks come to me and say, hey, are you treating this like they need to be fixed and they're defective and things like that? And not at all. I think that we had a consultant on set and she did a wonderful job. And Austin, the thing about it is that you can look at Austin and think there's this lovable, hilarious kid. And he is. He's got more love in his pinky than any 10 people. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows at all. And it's easy to think that by the trailer maybe or something. But I mean, there are days where Austin, he will tell you, even though these folks say, oh, we don't need to be fixed. Well, Austin will tell me, you know what, Dad, if I had a pill, I'd take it right now to fix my autism. I don't feel that, but he's an amazing, he intakes things, processes, and transmits things. It's in a different fashion than you or I do. So I just look at it that way. His wiring's a little different and probably more profound because he looks at things a lot differently than you or I. And I think that a lot of times he probably gets it right, more right than I do. But again, the autism is one piece of it because I'm this broken guy that fell into this situation. And I think that the story is more so, though, about how we all as a whole embrace our faith and learn to move forward, not just because of autism, but because of all the elements, because we're messed up.
Yeah, and I know with my son, he's obviously they see the world differently than we do, but the one cool thing that I like is the fact that like you mentioned, like your character mentions in the film, that you're not looking to change him, but he in essence changed you. And that's how I feel about my son. I don't look at it as a curse like some people. I've told people like that. People tell me that they feel sorry for me. I'm like, why? I said, God created him the way he did for a purpose, and that purpose has changed my life because I look at things differently than I would have had I not had that challenge in my life. And Austin's joy and resilience are at the heart of both the book and this film. What's one lesson he's taught you that you think the world really needs to hear right now?
Well, he doesn't have a filter, and that's and I'll explain that because, for example, the Jester hat. The Jester hat's not a prop. He does have an extensive hat collection. It's enormous, but he's had the hat, the original one, for about more than 20 years, and he wears it routinely. He wears it to work. He wears it all the time. Why does he do that? He does that, and he doesn't care if someone looks at him funny or makes fun of him or anything like that. It makes him comfortable, and he's comfortable enough in his own skin that it doesn't bother him. I'm going to do things my way. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the way that he lives his life. And in terms of his filter, though, and I know there's a scene in the film that you probably recall regarding the bully. He lives his life that way as well. He gravitates to that person that is the most broken of all of us. And the more broken they are, the more he cares and wants to, reach out to that person. And we've had some times where we've had to kind of reel him back because of he can be very vulnerable because of that.
Yeah.
But some of those attributes of who he is and what makes Austin are things that I know Teresa and me and Logan could all or wish we could embrace more and be more like.
Yeah, me too. Well, so there's an element of the film that I thought was pretty cool. It kind of adds a whole different, pacing and element to this film. But tell us about Joe. I want to know a little bit more about Joe. I thought this was a very cool character in this film.
Well, I'll have to tell you, I'll have to step back and let you know that there were talks, I think at the Lionsgate level. I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but there were some folks they debate, and I learned so much about the whole movie making process, but they had to cut some scenes. There were a couple scenes that were cut that it really broke my heart, but I understand why they did it. But one of the ones they were considering was the Joe character. And I know that Peter and John Gunn will all concur with me, but John put his foot down and said, Joe doesn't go. There's no way that we're cutting Joe. And the reason is because it was a small element and a secondary character, but it was such a profound, it really meshed everything together. There's Austin and there's Joe and then everybody else. And so Joe was huge and I love Joe. Joe is my favorite character in the entire film. I was probably 18. I was in the garage on 6th Street in Red Oak, Iowa, and I was working on a bicycle or something. And I was back from my first year of college and my mother heard me talking and she started laughing and I didn't know she was there. And I turned around, I'm like, what is so funny? She's like, well, you're talking to yourself. I'm like, well, that's not so funny. I mean, everybody talks to themselves. She's like, yeah, but you're answering yourself. So you're going back and forth. And she's like, all right, we'll call him Joe or whatever. It just kind of stuck. And so for 40 years, I've known Joe. And just like the title of the book and the movie, so goes Joe. Because people always ask, who is the Unbreakable Boy? Is it really Austin? And all I would say is, I don't know. I mean, that's for you to determine. And also, is the Unbreakable Boy a person? Or is it something in here? Just like Joe, because everybody wants to know who you talking to. And it's evolved over the years. I know who Joe is. I know what Joe is. And so those are some things that are better left unanswered and better left for the reader and the viewer to think about and ponder, because I think they're beautiful components of the story.
Absolutely. I really like the character in the film. I thought that that character added a great element to the film that was already there, man. And just the movie as a whole, I'm really excited to see audiences go and check this film out. And when I talk to filmmakers and people involved in films, I always ask them this question in closing. But when people go to theaters to see The Unbreakable Boy this weekend, what is the biggest thing that you hope they take away from this after they watch it and they've left the theater?
Well, it would be, an example would be last week in Oklahoma City that's where it was filmed primarily. What we heard so many times, and ironically, it was from grown men, but I would love for anybody to walk out of any theater and look at me and say, oh my gosh, that was me. Or for whatever reason, they could take some thread from our story and say, relate it to their own life and just say, wow, that was me then, and feel good about it, or question themselves and think, wow, just if they walk away with one small positive thing from our film that they can relate to their own life, I think that's a success.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, thank you so much for joining us today, man. I'm really praying that the Lord can do some big things with this film and really, I don't know, just open up dialogue to people that may have dealt with all these things that you've dealt with in life and that Austin's dealt with. So thank you so much for joining us, and we greatly appreciate this, and pray success over this new film, man.
Well, thank you for having me. And as my partner Peter would say, that it's in God's hands. All along it's been in his hands. And one thing I never embraced and never quite understood until most recently is he would always say, this is going to change the world, it's going to change lives. And I do. I hope it blesses people and they embrace it and kind of maybe look at their own life differently. Thank you.